Hello, everybody. Welcome to Earth Nouveau. Today I have my guest and my dear friend, Patti Lucia, on, who wrote a book, and we're going to talk about the book. But first, I just thought I'd give you a little bio of Patti in case you didn't see it in the Facebook page. Patti is a high school English teacher, author, storyteller, and visionary. She has a special connection with trees, clouds, and food alchemy. This is Patti's first novel, Perilous and Beautiful, and she has written two other non-fictional books. Oh, well, first, let me show you. This is Perilous and Beautiful, the cover. Pay attention to that cover. And she wrote Wildflowers and Present Tenses, her memoir, and her Wildflowers and Wooden Spoons. It's a cookbook. It's a beautiful cookbook, by the way. Very pretty. Yes. So, and she is actually part of an HBO documentary series called Call Me Miss Cleo, who frequented Patti's Cafe back in the day. And at times she works with David Ellis doing alternative news shows and is part of the UCM community, and also discovered Andrew Bartz's teachings, I think back in the day, Patti.
Way back, 2012.
2012. So you're like Lana. I think Lana too.
Yeah, I'm a veteran.
Yeah, you're a veteran. I love it. And then I met Patti through, we did a series together with Liv Mokai Wheeler with the Candomblé, her shaman practitioner class, and the Candomblé divination class.
Mm-hmm.
Those were really, really special, right?
Another beautiful experience. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think of those often. So I just want to, is there anything you want to add to that, Patti?
No, I think that all the rest will be touched upon in our conversation. So.
Yeah. So I thought I would start out with your dedication to the book. It says, to all the souls, seen and unseen, who graced a little cafe and its owner with their love and friendship. That just gave me chills. I don't know. It's just so sweet and so deep. And I could just feel all of when you read the book, you just feel all those beings at the cafe of Bear. And I wanted to do, gosh, there's so much I want to say, I wrote down. But from that, because of the cafe, I wanted to go into the parallels of the book, because I know you from the places you've been, and I recognize, some of the streets in New York City you talk about, and, the places in Boston. I don't know if you talked about Boston, but you came from Boston to New York, and then you came to Florida, and I recognize all the places there. So that felt like a parallel to me. And can I just read the back of the book first before, because this is when it starts in 2001 with the Twin Towers. So when the Twin Towers come down and Bear's love, Bear is the main character. Marabella leaves the city. Her life implodes. But escaping the city with Ronnie, the picture of logic, reason, and success ultimately puts Bear's life and a new cafe in peril. Just as Ronnie plots and Bear feels completely alone, new friends arrive, including Sophie, a fairy-like woman who pulls Bear's heart skates open again. Will her little cafe survive against all odds? Will Sophie be the one to wear Nona's precious ring? Or do other, more mysterious forces pull the tides of Bear's life toward different shores? That's a metaphor in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of metaphors in the story.
There's a lot of metaphors here. I love a good metaphor.
Right. So I wanted to start out with actually let's do the style of writing. What is the genre and what is the style of writing that you would
Could we
call?
just go back a little bit?
Yeah.
Can I backtrack a little bit to remember you mentioned the dedication?
Yes.
Can we start there?
Yeah, start there.
We'll go. So you mentioned the dedication. I thought it's a good place to start. So and because you mentioned parallels right after that, and so I have to tell you, and Martina, before the show, the show, we mentioned very briefly about the importance of novel, right? And so and I think you might have been touching on some of the things that have come to me, and I've discovered about the difference between writing nonfiction and writing fiction, especially as a spiritual person who's had, spiritual mystical experiences. And I know for me, I struggled a little bit with that when I was writing my memoir, because it's really, I found it hard. And maybe one day when my skills have developed more, I'll be able to write those more effectively in nonfiction. But I found fiction writing it in a fictionalized way so much more freeing. I could really write more freely about some experiences that were actually, many of them were very real to me. So that being said, you had mentioned this, and it's not a series, it's a movie, a documentary that was done on the kind of the infamous psychic that was known in the 90s, Miss Cleo. And because she used to frequent my cafe, they contacted me, and I ended up being in this documentary that was just released. When was it?
Last fall.
Yeah. And it was in the process of doing this interview series, these people coming to my house and asking me all these questions about my cafe and everything, a year ago, that I felt inspired, even though I had a couple of books that I was kind of already working on. I felt inspired to write more of a story about the magic and the mystical things that happened around that cafe and my cafe experience. And so I dove into the novel writing experience, and thus you have Perilous and Beautiful, which does parallel a lot of my own experiences, and to bring it to that dedication at the beginning of the book, when I say, for all of the souls, I struggle with dedications. It's like, should I write one? And I always feel like I need to think carefully about who I dedicate a book to. But for this one, I really wanted to nod to all of the beautiful souls that came into my cafe during this period of time. And it was a period of time when my own spiritual awakening was in high gear. I was at the very opening of that cafe, I felt like it catapulted me into quite a spiritual. I was like a sponge, and that's good in some ways and not so good in other ways, as you can imagine. But I felt like it was a magical it was a vortex. It was a vortex for all kinds of things, and so attracted many different kinds of people, and also folks that were more spirit than physical. And so that was often an experience in that place, is that it was crowded even when there were only a few people there. And you felt it. So I had some really wonderful experiences there, and met friends, lovers. It was really a wonderful experience for me. And writing Perilous and Beautiful, I think, was a way for me to give expression and give homage to those, to the very special people who walk through that door, and also some of the beings who graced me with their presence and their protection and their guidance and their love, whom I didn't see but felt.
Yeah. You can feel that through the story. And I forgot to say, anybody have any questions or anything, just raise your hand. I know Jen read the book. So the parallels were, were just I don't know, you did bring it together because I knew you did own a cafe. You know, I knew that
Mm-hmm.
parallel in there.
Mm-hmm.
And you are a gay woman and you're right
Mm-hmm.
about gay women in the story.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
how difficult or easy was that? Because what do you put in there and what do you not put in there? And, you know,
Mm.
was it the same? Because it is about relationships among women, but yet relationships among women lovers. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. Well, there is a saying, for writer authors, write what you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So yeah, it was, I definitely wanted to, and there were things that I left out of my memoir that were difficult to write that I felt that I could write more in a fictionalized way. Some of, like being in a relationship that was emotionally abusive. Um, and so, and finding my way out of that, I thought I was able to write more, I was able to write more freely about in a fictionalized book. But I really wanted to, look, I mean, we're all on this human journey and we have very human lives and they're messy and they look all kinds of ways and we're just moving through the ordinary, often having extraordinary experiences as we move through the ordinary, as we screw up in our relationships, as we burn dinner, as we're kind of moving through, or not seeing the signs, bumbling our way through. And I often felt what was really true for me is that I feel like I've even as I was on earnestly on a spiritual journey, that I was bumbling my way through. Like I wasn't, I didn't see things that other people saw around me. I didn't pick up on it, synchronicities. I kind of, and there I was really trying,
yeah,
was missing, and I was missing so much. And and then reconciling the things like the wisdom that comes to us, and yet we still don't know or haven't integrated that into our ordinary lives and our relationships. So it's all of that, and so it just happens to be that that the women in this story fall in love with other women. I didn't want to market it as and though people want me to, but I really resist marketing it as like this lesbian romance, because quite frankly, and my editor told me this, if you try to sell this book to the people who regularly read lesbian romance, you probably won't get very good reviews, because you are not delivering what they expect in a lesbian romance. And it's true, it's a little too spiritual. It doesn't follow the format that one expects when one reads even just a regular romance. It just doesn't follow that storyline, because there's a lot more going on in this book than
yes,
girl meets girl. They
yes,
run into some issues, they overcome them, they're together in the end. It's like,
yes.
that's not this book. That's not this book.
No, and I wanted to
No.
touch on that, the creation and the character building. How did you build those characters, the protagonist, the antagonist? I mean, there's some in there. And the songs and the song relations throughout, the songs you put in there.
That's
Which,
a lot. Okay. All right. So
yeah,
one thing at a time.
one thing. Yeah,
That was a lot, Amy.
that was a lot. I'm sorry. I'm so excited. Okay.
All right. So, when you were talking about parallels, I got to tell you, Bear's voice is very close to mine. And Bear's experiences are very close to mine. So I kind of built it. And actually, one of the things that I had to work a lot on is developing Bear's interior. What was going on, as she was thinking things through, as she was, because the character of Bear is more of an introvert. And so her interior world is going to be, you know, you have to really accentuate her interior world if the reader is going to get a sense of how she's taking action. And that's what the reader expects. You know, I have to tell you, honestly, the antagonist of Ronnie is really based on some very real experiences that I had in trying to extract from an emotionally abusive relationship. You know, what was that? You know, and it was a time, it's interesting because it was, here's the thing about the mystical stuff that's happened in my life is, you know, I came to Florida in a relationship with someone I wasn't in love with, for, you know, for a whole host of reasons. And yet that relationship brought me where I needed to go. It was a disaster of a relationship. So as a spiritual person, in retrospect, you look back and you say, and many people say, oh my God, I made such a mistake. I'm so regretful. How could I have done that? That was a waste of X number of years in my life and everything. And it always hurts my heart when people say that, because I think, no, that got you. That got you somewhere. And so, and I experienced it myself, my God, how could I have made that decision? And yet I felt compelled to be in that relationship. And then when it was almost like when my spirit was done, like it had served its purpose, it was like I was very resolute about it being over, being over. It had, and so in the book, when Nona, right, Nona, the wise, loving grandmother, the really such a wonderful, what a wonderful character that was for me to develop. When Nona says, sometimes relationships are trains. You know, Martina, we were talking about trains, and so I have a lot of train metaphors here. And sometimes relationships are trains, meaning that they move. She says they move you from, you know, to new possibilities.
Yes.
You know,
Can I read that exact? Can I read that exact quote? Because I wrote it down. I love the quote.
Okay.
Nona says, and this is when she's living, right? This is before she, you know.
Yes, this is before she passes.
This is early in the book. Because I think you were talking about, well, there's the character Marabella, who you meet in New York City when you move there.
Who Bear meets, who
Bear. I know, I use you as forgive me, but I know.
That it's it is okay. I think it's funny.
Okay, I know. Okay, Bear meets Marabella. And Marabella, you try to give Marabella the ring after 3 years together, and she doesn't want Nona's ring. She says this is not, I forget the word she uses.
I can't be your beloved.
Yeah, I can't be your beloved. So then Nona says to you, some relationships are like places. They are a whole world unto themselves. And some relationships are like trains. They transport us between possibilities. That was the reference to Ronnie. The other reference was to Marabella. Yeah.
So a little piece of wisdom from Nona. Nona is a character in the book that I would have loved for her to have been like a real person in my life, because that would have been a wonderful blessing. Though I'm not sure if Nona, you know, so Nona's the grandmother, the Italian grandmother. And what's interesting about my Italian grandmother is that my real Italian grandmother, is that she died before my parents were even married. And I had talked to a kind of a clairvoyant one time who said, you have this older woman who's very peaceful, and I see a lot of pink around her, and she's a very quiet presence in your life. And I couldn't think of who that was. And one time, and you know, at one point I thought, is that my grandmom? And it's a woman I never met. I've only seen in really, really old pictures. So I imagine I was thinking of her, definitely thinking of her as I was writing the character of Nona.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So let's see, does anybody have any questions?
Well,
So
I
can
was just wondering if that
yeah.
was your, hi, thank you for being here
Thank you.
today. I was just wondering if that was your mom's mother or your dad's mother.
My father's mother. Yeah, my father's mother. They're from Italy, so yeah, my Italian ancestry. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And we have other characters. So yeah, what do you want? Did you want to, oh, another thing I wanted to ask you, the songs,
Yeah.
yeah, what significance did they have?
Well, for those of you who I'm sure most of us have spent time in cafes and coffee houses, especially, right? And so there's something wonderful about coffee house music, right? And so I wanted, so part of including the songs was, in this, because in almost every chapter, it seems, especially once the cafe is open, there is music playing in the background. And so I kind of connected whatever music was playing in the background with whatever might have been going on in that scene.
Mhm.
And you have the character and the people, like Sophie, Bear's love interest is very very musical herself, and so she is somebody who's like a connoisseur of music and all kinds of not mainstream music, but other kinds of music. So we get introduced to a little of that when they spend the evening together. But a lot of that was because people could, if they knew the music or they listened to it, they could actually, there's another layer of meaning if you listen to the music. As a matter of fact, on my website, if you visit my website, I have a page dedicated to to the playlist
Yeah,
of Perilous and Beautiful. So you could go on, and if you're curious about any of the songs, they're all right there in the order, and it kind of says when they appear in the book and what scene they are playing. So I thought music is just kind of it's an important layer, I think, of meaning. And most of the people I know seem to have a playlist to their lives. Like there's, oh, that song is associated with that breakup. Why did you have to play that song? That's so sad, or that makes me so happy, or whatever, whatever it is. And so I just wanted to include that as kind of an ordinary part of the goings on at a coffee house.
Yeah, I loved it. And also I want to talk about the pace of the book, because I feel like the beginning and then the chunk of it is like that cafe, man, that really just
turbocharged everything.
Yeah. But you really nicely bring it in, at a pace. And I don't know if that has anything to do with writing, the pace in which you write, the pace in which we read it. Does that have anything to do with it, or that just happenstance?
It's a really good question. But like the character itself, the main character is kind of slogging through a lot. There's a lot, and I think the pace picks up when the magic starts happening.
Yeah,
the pace picks up when at the beginning, the moment she finds the place to open up that coffee house, boom, there's all kinds of things happening. There's new action, there are people coming in, there's her life was isolated very much, which is true for many people who are in in relationships that are emotionally abusive. They live these really isolated lives, and not a whole lot going on, and then all of a sudden the doors swing open. And because the coffee house was opened with such intention too, so the intention of continuing to connect to her Nona, who is now in the spirit world, really opens up this this kind of energetic pathway for that kind of support and guidance to come into her life, even though she's often unaware that
Yes.
she's being given.
I love it. I love Bear.
Mm.
Oh, she's just so, so sweet, and I don't know.
And then,
Um,
that, did you want
yeah.
to say something about her? Because people are curious. It's such an
Oh
odd
wait,
name.
I know. Oh yeah, Bear. So let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Her
it's
name.
it is really an odd name, and that's intentional. It's like, why would a woman even want to be called Bear? That's so weird. And it is. But it is the name that was given to her by her nonna, who called her Little Bear, or Sita, in Italian. And so Bear has kind of gone by that name, and the people closest to her, and the people who kind of see her and understand her, and love her, call her Bear. And those who, would be otherwise embarrassed by that kind of name, or don't connect in some way to the meaning of it, won't call her by her, by her name. Yeah,
I
by
think
her chosen name.
Ronnie
Refused right from the start.
refused to call her Bear, and so yeah.
Mm.
So let's talk about in chapter 3, you open your cafe.
Mm.
So there's a lot of family dynamics. Bear's family loved Ronnie. They
Right.
loved everything about
Right.
her, but Nona never expressed disapproval or approval. She let you figure that out. She didn't
Right.
give
She
you
let
any
Bear
kind of-
figure that out. Right.
Yeah.
And that's that's what wise elders do.
Yeah. Well said.
Mm-hmm.
And so the family dynamics there with Bear and that family, and then Ronnie, but you and Ronnie moved to Florida, and she kind of wants to open the cafe. Like, she's all like gung-ho about it, but you kind of like take your time. Like, you kind of give her like she wants to franchise it. She wants to
Well,
do all
yeah,
that
well,
with it.
they have very different visions, and that comes out pretty, so
Yeah.
Bear wants to create a space, like a gathering space, and she wants to honor the things that she's learned from Nona in her cafe. So, the way that she prepares drinks and food.
Mhm.
She wants to bring that kind of that food aspect into the cafe. And Ronnie is thinking about it as something that's brandable. And she can franchise it, and that sort of thing. But that's not Bear. So right from the very beginning, they have very different visions and intentions for the cafe.
Yeah. And in that chapter, so you open your cafe, and I thought this was very sweet with what Bear does. She kind of, it was open mic night. So they have open mic night where anybody can come in. Even Debbie the dominatrix can come.
Mm-hmm.
She shows up. That character. She makes a total transformation in the
Yes,
end.
she does. Yes, she does.
So you have all these people. You have Anoki, who is actually here on Hi Anoki. And Tony, Mickey. I'm just going to name the characters so everybody gets to.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So there's Nona, and then there's Linda, there's Sophie, Anoki, Tony, Mickey, Debbie the dominatrix, Portia, and Brandy. Those all, Brandy comes in later, but Linda comes into your cafe, and you become fast friends. And
yeah. So
yeah. And on your open mic night, so you have this, and I felt like Nona taught Bear the sacred gatherings. You call them the open mic night were these sacred gatherings. And so every Thursday afternoon, you prepared this space before open mic night. A reverence kind of for the creative souls who would enter under the brass bell. I love that. Because the brass bell, you had a bell on the door.
There's a bell on the cafe door, and every time someone entered, it would ring.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. So anything we want to say about characters? Anybody else? Any questions?
So did you have something about Nona and
Well, that
open mic night?
well, that was what I felt Nona, you learned
Mm.
from her, the sacred, to make the place sacred,
To make the place,
your food sacred.
yeah, so that everything like creativity, like to celebrate all forms of creativity. So that was something that was inspired by Nona. But Bear's sense of spirituality definitely came from Nona. And Nona, the backstory is that how Bear ends open mic night by getting up on stage and asking people to remember as they move through their week, how the creator sees them and has always seen them, that they are also beautiful and so perfect in every way, and then wishes them a good week and so forth. And there's that's very, very special moment at the end where people are sent off into their week with those final words. You are so beautiful and so perfect in every way. Remember that. Remember how the creator sees you. And so in those words were the last words that Nona had said to her. And so it was really important that she, that in the spirit, in honoring the presence of Nona's spirit, that she share that with the people who would come out to her cafe.
Yeah, I actually wrote that. That saying was very beautiful at the end when you had to close.
And Nona had actually said that because she was the only one who came to Bear's graduation, high school graduation. So there was no family at her high school graduation, but Nona, who accepted her as she was, and said, you are as God created you. You are beautiful and perfect. And that is something that she kind of would say, in their conversation sometimes, and it happened to be the thing that she said in their very last conversation before she passed.
Wow, yes. Ah, I remember that. So then we're gonna skip to so you open your cafe and you meet Sophie. So Sophie comes in with Linda. And then well, before that, actually, I think at some point, Bear decides to leave Ronnie.
Right.
Now, this was when she had gone to San Diego, and you kind of found out that, she was taking her friend from work, Isabel.
Yeah, so Bear suspects infidelity in their relationship, and it all comes to a head on an open mic night day when Ronnie leaves suddenly on a Thursday afternoon because she's going to make a presentation at a Pride thing in San Diego, and none of it made any sense to Bear. It didn't make any sense, and it was becoming clear that there was something going on. So the crisis was that Bear was left alone with a whole crowd. It was the busiest day of the week, and there she was with this whole crowd, and so she was in the weeds before the evening even started. And there she was very anxious about it because she was alone. And so it was Linda who came to the rescue, and that was the night that that Bear meets Sophie, because Linda kind of drags her out of the house and brings her into the cafe. So that's the night they meet, and it is from that wonderful experience that Bear has with the two women that she makes the decision. She gets the strength and the guidance from them to have the courage to make a decision about her relationship.
Yeah. And Linda, I just love Linda. She just is always there for Bear, and she even helps her find a place to help her move out. Like she's just, I don't know, it almost feels like a mother Bear. you know?
Yeah, the interesting thing about Linda is, like all of the characters in their own way are like spiritual and mystical, but Linda isn't. Linda is Miss Logical. Linda is Miss Loyal. She is the one who's there for her friends. She thinks Bear and Sophie are kind of weird, they kind of burn incense and, you all are kind of weird. And that's kind of her position, but she is absolutely steadfast in her love and her dedication to her friends. And so I love the character of Linda because I think she represents so many people who might not see themselves as spiritual and might even think that some of the wacky people around them, like people around them who have little home altars and burn incense or do that kind of weird stuff are just kind of weird, but they love them anyway. And, and they're still really loyal to them. Those people are precious. They're absolutely precious. And I also think that Linda is a character, and I think this also happens in many of our lives. I know it certainly has happened for me, is that sometimes we spiritual folks kind of have a hard time staying in our bodies, staying on the earth plane, kind of floating around, having out-of-body experiences and all that. We need people like Linda in our lives. We need folks who help us anchor. And sometimes the people who might help us anchor and stay grounded are people who we might not see as spiritual at all, but they have a particular understanding for how to lovingly keep us balanced. And I think we need that. And so that's the role that Linda plays. And it was lovely to create that character. And I created her so lovingly because I have such great appreciation for people who have done that in my life.
Yeah. I love it. My internet is not cooperating, so I'm sorry if is it okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, Jen might have to take over.
I can say a few things while your internet's stable.
Yes, okay.
So I really enjoyed the book, Patti, I really did. I used to read several books a week, and this last year, I was extracting myself from an abusive relationship, and I've been busy with everything else, and this was the first time I've really let myself just drop into a book. I read it over the course of 2 days.
Wow.
And I love to read, and like when I read fiction, like I just drop in and I live the story of that character. So this was like really soft and comfortable to do that, and had so many parallels with my life. So I really enjoyed that. You can see a lot of the teachings and the themes that we're all kind of following spiritually right now interwoven in there. I think that Bear had obviously an appreciation for her ancestors. And while she wasn't maybe as open to that communication at first, you could see that the more she allowed it, the stronger it would come in. And it was beautifully vague and nondescript too, like Nona would just give a couple words or an impression, and she had to navigate it and figure it out like we all do. And I love the gentle nudges, but you're not going to tell them everything. Bear is a really beautiful story of like non-attachment, right? So she goes through all these things and she takes them pretty well in stride. She has that initial reaction, but then she still navigates it seamlessly, and all this community that comes in to support her, she really manifests them by allowing them into her life and watching all these people come together, very different personalities that come in and intermingle for a sense of community, non-competition, non-hierarchy. Like they really all work beautifully together. Of course, we all love little mystical sayings and things like that, so I flagged a couple of those in the book. I love to cook also, and just reading about how Bear takes into the traditions that she was taught and how much love and intention. And I mean, I would add prayers. I think she kind of did in her own way too.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so what she, yeah, and that she even said in the book how Nana had taught her that when you put love into it, you get good things out of it. When you cook when you're angry, then you get the opposite result out of people. And you know, we clear our food and things like that just as a spiritual hygiene practice.
Mhm.
But when I cook, I intentionally, especially if I'm cooking for other people, I intentionally put how I want them to feel and the love and everything that I want to share with them. You can smell like the herbs cooking, like it's so descriptive when she's cooking that I could smell the cumin and the onions and the garlic, everything as I was reading. I have a song to go with everything in my life too, so I like to parallel you out of the songs because we all have a living soundtrack of our days.
There you go.
And I have a friend also who writes lesbian romance, and so I've read her books, and yours is much. It's not the primary part of the story. It's just kind of in the background. So I really didn't think that stood out. I loved how accepting Bear was of everybody that she crossed paths with. So many different walks of people, from Debbie the Dominatrix to Anaki, to everybody's story that came in, and
even Simon, right?
Simon,
I mean, it just became part of her pack. And because she accepted them, they accepted her, and they were able to have a symbiotic relationship. So I really enjoyed the story. It was a very well-paced read. The characters, you fell in love with every one of them. I mean, they became your friends as you read through the book. We're all going to hate Ronnie, right? We're not hate her, but just keep her to the distance because nobody has a use for that. But outside of that, it was just a very sweet story, and it was a nice teaching for how everything that we're learning and all the words that we're putting together come into someone's story as they're growing spiritually.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Jen. You articulated it so well, and I so appreciate that. Do you have any? Were you left with any questions?
Just what's next for Bear?
Oh,
Right?
yeah. There's another book coming, obviously, that picks up in Italy. With Oriana, and it's going to focus on Oriana's journey, which it has been challenging but deeply spiritual. What's wonderful about preparing for this next book is the research that I'm doing in Italian, like, mysticism and and spirituality and the practices, and not just Estrella, not that, but like they're in the food alchemy and the food magic in Italy, and so the characters that I'm really looking forward to developing. And there'll be some like controversial things in this one too, that relate to Oriana's struggle in her journey, but I'm very much looking forward to writing this next one, because what I'd like to do, to be honest with you, is and I'm sure it's a reflection of my own journey. Just like an artist changes their art as they move on, I think writers do the same thing. And as I go deeper into my own spiritual journey, I would like the characters of my books to go deeper into theirs. And so with every book, I would like to kind of explore some deeper and sometimes more messy questions that come up for those of us who are endeavoring to live the best spiritual life we can, or explore all of those questions about our own lives. So I'm really looking forward to them. Yeah.
I think that's really important, that we're all in our own way teachers to people that are not as far along on the path as we are, and some people are very bold in how they want to be teachers, and some people are softer about it. I tend to be on the softer side. So to be able to tell it through somebody else's story as an example is, to me, easier for a lot of people to absorb than to be bold about it. So to show somebody going through their spiritual development and some of the messy stuff that comes up and how they they deal with it is it's a soft way of teaching. And I would imagine that being able to tell a story from your personal experience is a really nice entryway. And then to grow beyond that, having to do all the research about the Italian food alchemy and stuff like that, like that'd be an exciting challenge for me to not write about something that I know, but to explore something that I'm
Oh, yeah.
just learning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just learning and intertwine the certainly intertwining the things that we know and that we're learning with new ground,
Mhm.
new creative soil. I love it. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. So I'm looking forward to what's going to grow in my creative garden, this year. So I'm very much looking forward to it. The title of the next book is Tremulous and Noble. So I'm going to kind of keep it there. The titles are kind of paradoxical in a way. Perilous and Beautiful, really. How do those two coexist? And so Tremulous and Noble, and that's and that pretty much sums up Oriana's journey. And so, like I said, I'm very much looking forward to writing that. And of course, all the whole gang, we're gonna see everybody, everybody you met, except for Ronnie, and maybe Simon, all of the main characters of the first book will certainly be in the second book. It's a series. I don't know how many I'm going to write, but I'm definitely working on the second one.
I did notice how you bookended the title, because you bring in Perilous and Beautiful in the paragraphs in the beginning, and then you close the story almost with Perilous and Beautiful too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right. On yes. Well, you mean except for the epilogue. The epilogue
Yeah.
is different, but yes. So the main story ends with
Yes.
the journey through a perilous and beautiful universe.
yeah,
The
and
souls.
I can write you the little pages that I dog-eared that just had like a few words that stuck with me. But I liked in the acknowledgements, because I'm not usually somebody that reads like I don't usually read the introduction. I just jump right in, and I never read the end. But I did, and I liked that you called attention to the people that actually like turned that page to read that page too, because I don't know, there was a special acknowledgement to somebody that followed reading like the last page of the book instead of quitting when the story was done.
Yeah. Yeah. Who came to the end of the story and kept going.
Mhm.
And that's kind of like that
Guys.
relates to the the kind of the riddle
Yeah.
that
I may have to
Portia.
come back in.
Okay.
Sorry, Amy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt somebody?
Yeah,
No,
that's
no.
okay. Are you all right, Amy? Is
I
everything
think
all
I
right?
might leave and come back in. Let's see what happens. Go ahead, Jen.
Okay.
Carry on. Carry on.
In the the character of Portia, when she's giving Bear that riddle about the these tragic disasters that happen that end with so much death, and she's kind of saying, how could these stories end in beauty? How could they continue on and end in beauty? And and Bear kind of, towards the end, she solves the riddle. But it really is about continuing the story timeline. The story doesn't end there with the complete loss. It actually continues because life continues, and life is beauty. And so we just continue living and telling our story. And so I think that and so there was just something about acknowledging those who came to the end of the story and kept going and kept reading it, even though it's a simple little thing like you're reading the acknowledgements. Thank you so much. I appreciate that you continued reading and the story's over.
I love it. Did you bring any
Then you
more
wonder what
characters?
Nuggets I had. Sorry, Amy, go ahead.
Did you bring, I heard the word Portia. Did we bring Portia in? No, did you not mention? Can you hear me?
We can hear you just
Okay,
briefly.
good.
You're a great, great character. What do you want to say about her?
Oh
Amy?
yeah, no, well, first of all, Portia, let me go back to the metaphors throughout the book. And the one where Cinderella comes up, and she comes up, yeah, Cinderella, and then she comes up, how do you say it again in Italian? Sarantella?
Sarantella. Well, just the first reference to Cinderella, though, happens in her abusive relationship, right?
Yeah.
Because Bear feels a little bit like a Cinderella in
Mhm.
that story, and she feels like Ronnie's painting her into a corner of being
Yeah.
the Cinderella character, and so Bear develops this aversion to that story, right? She's like, and so there are references to
Mhm.
it, but then at the very end, I don't want to give too much away, but
Yeah.
the story comes up again, but it's the Italian version, and Bear makes assumptions about the Cinderella story, and doesn't realize, and Oriana has to tell her, no, that's not the Italian version of this story.
Yeah.
In this
Yeah.
story, Cinderella is powerful and strong and magical. Like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a different story. I'd like to read that. So, and again, it's playing with the metaphor of story, of course, and yeah. So there's
And
a
then you
lot.
had, because you had Linda come in again and say, like Ronnie says to you, I'm just breaking it down for you, Cinderella, like with attitude. And then Linda says, remember, Bear, just remember, in order for the story to work, the slipper has to fit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think Ronnie tries to make up and wants to get back together, and you find out that this ring that she had given you was not for her first, for you first, for Bear.
Mhm.
So she says, what does she say?
She leaves a note.
Oh, yeah, I don't wear glass slippers.
I don't wear glass slippers.
It's like,
Yeah. So these moments, yeah.
you just had these
So-
moments of like, yes.
I think that
Yeah.
the metaphor in the book, though, that relates most to the title, comes from the scene, the sea turtle scene.
Mhm.
When she's and there's something if people have had the experience of watching these little baby sea turtles hatch, and then in the first moments of their life, they are walking into a vast ocean, an impossibly vast ocean for such tiny little
Mhm.
newborn creatures. And Bear gets to witness that, right, for the first time in her life. And it is on the beach where she's watching them hatch and walk, do their little march to the ocean, that she's kind of in awe and says, it's so perilous. And of course, she's there with Sophie, who's dragged her out to
Mhm.
see this. And in that, and as she stands and watches, she says, and yet it's so beautiful. And Sophie says, that's the miracle. And so I think that is, and then of course you have that kind of scene repeat at the very end. But that is the miracle. That is the paradox and the miracle for life. It is so perilous, and the ocean is so vast that we're swimming in. And yet it is so beautiful. So anyway, yeah, it's the paradox and the miracle.
Yeah. 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 I love that. Let's go back to the cafe and the mango tree, because Inoki says something in the book to you about the tree. And that is a very special tree, and you actually did have a mango tree outside your own cafe, correct?
I did have a
Yeah.
mango tree outside
Yeah.
my cafe. And as Inoki points out, and Inoki is partly an indigenous woman in the book, and and so she has the kind of the wisdom of that in her blood and in her DNA. And so she says these things, or she makes these observations. And so in the book, she observes, she looks at this mango tree and she wants to point this out to Bear, who really had no idea that the mango tree, this 300-year-old mango tree, had its branches leaning over her cafe, and the roots were growing under her cafe. And so Inoki points this out and says, it's like the tree is holding your coffee house, and whoever wanted you to be here wanted you to feel that. And so Inoki in her own way is showing Bear that she's been guided, and this is the wonder and the magic of this location, is this magnificent tree. And so, yeah, so I had the experience of having a cafe that had a mango tree just outside my kitchen door. And I tell you, it is magical.
Yeah.
It's magical to have that kind of energy, to be cooking food for people under, like, in that energy, a 300-year-old.
It was a magical tree to sleep under too.
Yeah. This is the famous Inoki.
That's Inoki. And it's interesting, when I was developing the character, I was telling it, I called her up and I said, Inoki, I'm developing a character that's very much like you, and I can't quite figure out what to call her, like what name to use. And she was like, well, just use mine. And so this is it's a fictionalized version of this wonderful friend that I met at the cafe, but it is her actual name. She gave me permission to use her name, and I really just couldn't think of another name that I was having trouble, like, what should I call this wonderful quirky character? So yeah.
There was another, so it's almost like throughout the book, family keeps coming up. Soul family, family. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because, you got your nuclear family that you had, that you came from, but then you find this, Bear finds this family, but it's almost as if she doesn't really even know that it's really family until she does.
Until she does. Well, family is something that I have thought about so much throughout my life, in my spiritual journey, in my early activist days. I was a political activist, but I had that experience of feeling rejected, like not having a family, feeling rejected from my family. And then as a gay person, this is what we think. We'll just, it's just the family we find. We're just going to go out there and we're going to find family. And I don't mean to be flip, but kind of, because what I've discovered is that you can go out there and you can say, this is my found family. And while I think that there's much value to that, I do think that those of us who have lost our family or been rejected from that core family unit, we do spend the rest of our lives looking for family. You will, and people can say, oh no, I have these other people in my life, our family, and that might be true, but there is a core loss, I think, when we lose our family. It is very deep, and I don't think it gets talked about enough, particularly in the gay community. So Bear is in this search for family. Family is very, very important to her, and discovers that she has family, that they're as family connected to Nona. And it is in the end, and it comes into her dreams. And that's why Nona is saying, they're waiting for you. You have family. They're waiting for you. And Bear, I don't want to give too much of it away, because I know people are going to read the book and they're going to be like, Patti and Amy told us everything. There's
No, no,
spoiler
no.
alerts all over this interview.
No, no, no.
Darn you.
There's a lot of little
Um,
things in it.
Yeah, okay, but it is this family, this literally this family that is connected through Nona in Italy that's been waiting for her and following her life through Nona. And so they appear in a dream, and then she actually has the experience that she experienced in the dream in the end, to have people applauding her for having come. It was the oddest moment in the dream. Why are they applauding me for coming? Arriving, and she realizes that that's what happens when she meets her family that she didn't realize she had. So I think that there's a lot of things about family. There's a politician who comes in and says, "Oh, I want to." I want to take up your struggle. I want to run my campaign with, you in mind. I'm going to say how, businesses, gay-owned businesses should never be shut down. And because, I'm an openly gay candidate, and, and we're family. And Bear has that moment where she's like, you are not my family. You are not my family. Right. And I think it's that moment in the book where I kind of, am communicating through Bear that just because you say we're family doesn't mean we are. I decide who's family, and it is not politically determined. It is spiritually determined. It is determined on a soul basis or on a lineage basis. And so Bear meets more of her family, but she also connects with soul family through Sophie. Like it is, so there are references to soul family, and those are the real family connections. So I think so many of us are looking for family, and I think that there's a very real experience for many humans on the planet who feel that they have family out there that they haven't met. And I think it's probably true. I think that we have so many soul family members that we haven't met. And there's a kind of longing, there's a kind of yearning for reunion. There's a lot in this book about reunion. What does it mean to experience reunion when perhaps you have been separated from family for eons? You may have soul family you haven't seen, you haven't been in the presence of for eons. What would that reunion feel like? And that's why Sophie says it's heart cracking. It cracks your heart open, because it is how can you even imagine that? It's hard to imagine that kind of reunion. So I think I kind of touch on family on those different levels, and kind of reject the concept of a family that's determined through politics.
Yeah, I love that.
Amy,
Yes.
is it okay if I say something?
Yes, yes, please.
Well, now that I touched that little line of loneliness, it's something like I experience myself, and I go back to all the material that we got access through Andrew, and my understanding and grabbing. That's the reason why I feel so I don't belong to this family, because I know really nobody in my family is close to what I do, what I like, nothing. It's just like I would pop up from somewhere and drop in that place. That was all my feeling. Why my reason to be here in this family? Because I don't feel that connection, because so much drama, so much, competition, and so much, all those kind craziness or guiltiness, shame, and always looking for you doing the wrong thing, no praising the right one, and no grateful at all, always looking for the drama. And then and this makes sense, because if we are here just like a loss in this time and space, experience this life in this life experience right now I am now, but how many soul chart I has expressed all around the world, in the universe, everywhere, that we're looking for that loneliness and this desire to bring all those part of me that is everywhere, experience different life, and bring them together. It's like always this feeling that I know whole. It's
Mm,
that feeling that I'm just this little piece here looking to get my whole piece. And that desire to get better and better, because I'm hunting for something that I not having with me right now. And it's that's why, because if we're seeking please through our family or our friend or our partner, we're never going to feel full, because we are looking for something that's beyond that. It's nothing that had to do with this 3D dimension holograph life that we experience here. It's just so beyond that we're never going to fill it up if we're looking in the surrounding that we have in us. It's like let's see, for myself, sometimes I do a walk and connected with the trees. In that moment, I feel that connection that belong to that the whole scene, but not in this physical world, that I will never want to experience that belong to my family or to my friend, because I belong to something bigger. And here I just experience this little like a journey, a journey for a few years or a few months. That's what a 3D dimension is for me, and that's my feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's really common for, I think that's really common for many of us. We feel like we're born into families that don't feel like families, or we feel disconnected. And I think it's a common experience for us, you know, for many of us, not to be born into families that we have a real soul connection to. And it's one of the sadnesses of, you know, of humans, you know, and one of the things that I think make humans yearn for connection and for reunion, you know, who is my family? And so many people, whether you were rejected by your family or not, and sometimes it's like the feeling of disconnectedness. Even if they don't reject you, you feel kind of, I don't feel connected to my family. And so it just causes so many people to be yearning for that soul level connection.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think too, like in the book, like Bear didn't connect with family, you know, overseas. There was much more of a connection there. So our families are much bigger than we even know coming out of the gate, you know, like, and so there's a lot more to family that you might not connect right there in the inner circle that you're in, but there's probably somebody in your family that you can relate to in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting that you're going to be, you know, researching and going to Italy and exploring some of the mysticism and the magic there. And to me, this really relates to, you know, your Nona, your ancestral lineage there, and maybe the land that your family was
Absolutely.
from, and
Absolutely.
how, you know, how we can, when we're born into an ancestral lineage, right, we might not connect with our immediate birth family, but what is the magic within the ancestral lineage? You know, like, why did we choose that?
Mhm.
Right? Because even though, you know, our immediate family might not be awake or be able to understand what we're about, or, you know, maybe we're the leader in that family of the wave of spiritual awakening through the ancestral lineage. But you know, your grandma's like, but ancestral lineage, it's important, right? So
Exactly.
looking at, you know, the unseen world, and how, you know, maybe the gifts and abilities that run through that ancestral lineage is why we chose it.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree, Tanya.
Yeah.
Very well said.
I'm very excited for you to,
Yeah.
research and travel and walk the path of your, walk the land of your ancestors, because I feel like so much is going to,
Mhm.
so much more is going to open up
Mhm.
to you than you even have any kind of concept.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
can even imagine. I agree with
Mhm.
you.
Yeah.
I agree. Looking forward to the journey.
That's
I
awesome.
must say this is going to be like a trilogy, right? Probably three
Yeah,
of them.
probably a trilogy. Yeah.
Trilogy of like science surgery. That's the way I look at it from what I'm hearing.
A trilogy of what? Martina?
Of my personal psychic surgery journey, because I'm actually, I like what Herminia just thrown in beyond the soul family. It's actually, if every character, and I haven't read the book, but every character is a soul shard of you, a representation, a reflection, and that for hearing that huge hub of interconnectivity, all these different soul shards, parts, avatars, I ams, they're all coming together as a reflection. And coming together, we use the name family, but, there's another way we can, in order not to get sidetracked by, the indoctrination about family and all of that, we could just call it centeredness of our soul essence, because it's a collection, right? And the reflection different shards. And even if you make the character up, it's like, well, there is a shard of you probably lost somewhere in the void space that
Yeah.
wants to come through. Invitation, right? The book is the invitation to bring them all in. And it's just such a beautiful way of doing, because you're taking out, well, I can't say you take out drama because there is drama, but you make it sort of fit. This is a collection, a healing journey for you. So my question to you as the author of this is, what kind of healing have you created for yourself by just doing the first book?
Yeah. I love the way that you express that, Martina. I do think like all of the characters are in some way reflections of me, whether they were based on actual people or not, because I think the people in our lives are also that as well. I agree too that this has been a healing journey for me in ways that I did not expect. I could not imagine, but it was an emotional book to write. And so the healing for me, I think, was on many different levels. I think it was revisiting some of the wounds, from the past, the family wounds from the past, and moving along in my kind of understanding and acceptance of that. And I think being more loving and forgiving of myself for the ways that I bumbled along, because as I lived many of these experiences and in the aftermath of it, I often was extremely critical and judgmental of myself for the ways that I fell down, or for the ways that I didn't see things. I didn't get it. I didn't connect the dots. I wasn't this enough or that enough in my journey. And to write a book like this and actually take it all the way through to the end, and then actually read it, I really, it gave me much more of a sense of connectedness, and that it was all it was an even more beautiful journey than I thought. I was able to see more of the beauty in it. Yeah, I mean, and there's so much more to say. I so appreciate that question, because I think even though, I'm kind of awkwardly answering it now, I think that question is going to stay with me, and I will carry that question into the next book and go even deeper with the ways that the next book will be an even deeper level of healing as I move through it. And some of that will be conscious. And I think just as this one, some of it won't be as immediately conscious. So, I mean, that's the wonderful thing about writing and doing art, is we're giving expression, and we're so, it's so much an expression of spirit and soul that sometimes we don't realize. All of what we are communicating in what we write and what we create visually.
Beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. So it's part of like, almost like you continue to discover it. It's like, wow, I wrote that. That's, so it continues to be a journey of self-discovery and healing. Absolutely. Thank you, Martina, for that.
It's beautiful.
Could I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. So, Patti, I was just looking at your website, and I have two questions. But the first one is, whereabouts in New York did you have your cafe?
My cafe was not in New York. It was in Florida. So it was in a little seaside town called Lake Worth.
Oh, I was under the assumption maybe you had a cafe in New York also.
No, no.
Sorry, I didn't read the book. I wasn't even aware you had a book out.
Yeah, no, that's okay. The book starts in New York. The book starts in New York shortly after 9/11. Yeah.
So that brings me to my second question then. I saw that your chapter 1 is when the towers came down. Now, why did you start with that as your title? Is that a title in the chapter?
Well, that's what I call, I have a recording on my website. I have a recording of the first chapter.
Yeah,
So I read that. So I was going to kind of go through and do recordings of different chapters. So I titled that, but it's not titled in the book. But why did I start that at that moment when the towers came down?
Well, anything in general you can talk about that relates to
9/11,
when the towers came down. Yeah,
when the towers came down.
Yeah.
Well, I was in New York City during 9/11. I was in a classroom and had the experience of that kind of altering. It was a life altering experience to be in New York City during 9/11 and after. So I had that experience, but the reason why I included it in the book was because the first round of editing, when I sent my first draft to my editor, and she looked it over, and she was doing this, what you call the structural editing, which is, kind of more the big picture editing. She raised the issue that we needed to know more of what was going on with Bear and why she was motivated in the ways that she was motivated. We needed a baseline. We needed a emotional baseline. Why was it, for instance, why did she feel so alone in the world? Why was it so important for her to make connections in Florida? She was saying we need more of her interior world. And so I decided to begin with 9/11 and the significance of the towers coming down, which were for me and for so many people, they represented they were, and you heard New Yorkers say this, that was how I found my way home. That was how I knew where I was. It was kind of almost like this what do you call it? A signpost. It was like for New Yorkers, it was how does this even feel like home anymore if they're not there? So it was kind of like this emotional connection to the towers, and for the character, the towers represented like these two gleaming like
Like
what
a
do you call it?
lighthouse.
Like lighthouses.
Yeah, yeah.
They were
yeah.
like two lighthouses that shined in all directions. And there was something really comforting for the character, even though she found herself in this big, crazy city. She was sure she was going to find family there, and she was going to find home, and she was going to find friends and a love. You know, she was sure she was going to find it there because of these two towering lighthouses. For her, that's what it represented. And so when they came down, she had no sense of home or belonging anymore, and had a great desire to get out of the city. The city was no more a place of possibility. It was a prison.
So did you
that's how
live
she
in
went.
Manhattan at the time?
Yeah, I lived and worked in Manhattan. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that experience is very, very, very
Yeah.
intimate for me. Yeah.
I lived there at the time too, so that's why I'm
Mm.
kind of curious, and I was involved in volunteering down there.
Mm,
And so I have my own story about that.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why I'm curious of asking you about your experience and why you started the book out
Mm.
with that.
Yeah, it was a big moment for me, and I'm
Mm.
sure it was for you too. And
I used to
if
see the
you-
towers from my apartment, and
Mhm.
I'm just gonna, if you don't mind, I'll just share this briefly. That very
Mm.
morning, you remember that it was a very sunny September morning.
It was a perfect
Beautiful,
morning.
warm.
It was
Yes,
perfect.
yes.
The blue of the sky. Yeah, I remember. It was
Yeah.
absolutely perfect.
And so I never normally would do this, but something was nudging me to go out on my balcony and take a look. And I came out and I looked, and I looked at the towers, and I saw this beautiful sunlight reflecting off of it.
Mhm.
And I actually said out loud, "You look so beautiful this morning." And I've never ever done that before.
Yeah.
And even now I'm talking about it, it's making me a little emotional.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
that emotion. It's like I have the same experience.
Yeah.
Lana, I have the same experience where it's been all these years, and
Yeah, it's like you it's like maybe my higher self or something knew something was going to happen,
Mhm.
and it nudged me out the door to go and take a look and to make that expression, because I've never ever done that before. I've took pictures, and that morning I said to myself, I should take a picture of you
Mm.
because you look so beautiful this morning.
Mhm.
And I was running late for work, so I said, forget that. There'll be many other mornings and days I'll have an opportunity to take photos of it.
Yeah.
And it never happened again after that.
Mm.
So
Wow.
sometimes when you get the message to do something, just do it right away, because the
Mhm.
moment's gone and
Yeah.
you'll never have the moment again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
I came home during the lunch hour, and I started to take pictures of it from I could see the smoke rising, and every day I took time-lapse photo of the smoke, and it lasted until Saturday. And I remember on the
Mhm.
Saturday, the smoke was going in one direction, but on Saturday morning, when I came out and took a look and to try to take pictures, the smoke had changed color from like a sort of a whitish color to a
Mhm.
very dark, eerie
Mm.
color, and it was blowing in the opposite direction, and it was blowing over the city now instead of away from the city. And I thought, that's pretty eerie looking.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the last day I took pictures of the time lapse
Mm.
of the smoke coming out from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is a way to start. I thought I loved that you started it that way. Something that
Mm.
really, it feels like it like propelled you in the
Mhm.
direction of the book, because it was something that touched us all.
Yeah, and that chapter didn't
Yeah.
exist like in the original version. That chapter was
Oh, it didn't even-
not, no, it was not there in the first
Oh.
edition, not the first edition, in the first the first draft. The first draft is always a little, the first draft always needs work, like a lot of work. But my editor encouraged me to write. She said, write another first chapter, which really establishes an emotional baseline for your character. And I walked around
Man.
for a couple weeks thinking and thinking and thinking, and I was like, oh, that.
Yeah.
Right. And once I began writing, it was very, that was a very quick chapter for me to write.
Mhm.
It seemed like that just, but it changed, it
Propelled.
just shifted everything in the book, and shifted the emotional interior of the character quite a lot.
Yeah.
So did you start
Which-
writing the chapter right after the towers came down? Or you took a while to get going on it?
No, I mean, this is the first chapter of the book I just put out in March. So this book just came out in March, and so I wrote this first chapter when I was going through the editing process in the fall of this year of 2022, when I
okay.
was just going through that editing process. So that was when I wrote that. Now I have written a story in my memoir, Wildflowers and Present Tenses, which came out in 2020. I have a story dedicated to that day. It's called Standing Memory, and it is about my experience of being in a New York City classroom on the morning of 9/11. And kind of what happened. And so I write about similar things. It's your experience, Lana.
Yeah.
And also the experience of the scent of the city, the way the city smelled for a month or so. And you know what I'm talking about. It was very distinct.
Yeah.
And so, so that story is in my memoir, and I it took me a long time to write about that, because that was in like 2019 when I was writing that. But when I first came to Florida, and I would write things here and there, but I never wrote about that until I was putting my memoir together.
Again, that's like Martina was talking about, the healing process.
Absolutely.
Like that was a very emotional time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was
I
quite
wanted
an
to
experience.
Yeah, it
I
was.
mean, I remember going in the city on Saturday, and I took like tons and tons of pictures. There were so many people, and the closest you could have gotten was down to about Union Square by 14th Street there.
Mm-hmm.
And they had so much going on. There were hundreds and hundreds of photographers everywhere
Mm-hmm.
trying to capture something, to have the memories, to create and to publish and all that. Yeah,
Oh,
it was fascinating. For
yeah.
me, it was just a big exploration just to be down there and experience the people and their emotions, capturing photos, and bringing my niece and nephew. They were still in high school and middle school, actually elementary school, for them to have the experience, so they will not forget the moments, because they were part of living through those times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lana, I actually think, and I've thought about this a lot, but like that, like on a spiritual level and on a collective level, that was huge. Like what was happening, not just in terms of the towers, but the forces behind it. There's just a lot to that event, that it may take us centuries to grok, like in terms of like on a spiritual, on a soul level, on a collective level, what was going on, or what was really going on. And I've thought about this often. I was like, how was it that I ended up living in New York City at the time of that event.
That's a
Right.
good
So like,
question.
and I think that that's true. Like, it's a really, really good question to ask. It was almost like I was contracted. I had a sole contract where I needed, because I talked to a lot of people who didn't live in the city, who lived in different parts. Now it impacted everyone, but there was something about living in the city when that happened and the kind of impact that it had on us right there. And I think for whatever reason, I needed to be there. I needed to be there to experience it. And so there it is. I don't pretend to know all the reasons why it would be that I would need to be there. But for some reason, this lifetime, I needed to be up close and personal to that event for some reason.
I thought about that, Patty, because I
Mhm.
was there. I was a volunteer from like Thanksgiving all the way to January at this
Mm.
place where they made food.
Mm.
I even actually went in the area twice with the delivery truck,
Mm.
and I got some pictures in there too. But when I thought about it, on a spiritual level, my sense of it was that, like you, we were supposed to be there because I had like a strong calling to just go and volunteer,
Mm.
for that
Mhm.
time, doing anything, whatever the need was of the moment. But it was the light that we were bringing, the spiritual light that we were bringing after this big disaster took place. Because there were both sides, both forces.
Mm.
And Andrew talked about what happened on all the different layers, all the dimensional levels, that
Mm.
caused them to come crashing down. And all we were left with was a hole in the ground. I don't know if you've
Mhm.
heard him talk about it,
Mm.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
there was that darkness, but then there was a need for light to be there. So our presence there was always to be the light that kept shining, that anchored the light there, never mind what took place. So it's not all lost,
Mm.
Mhm.
So that's how I felt. That's why I felt my presence was there when I thought about it.
You two are
Yeah.
going to have to chat later about this. That's cool.
Yes.
You got a
yes.
lot to,
Yeah,
that's quite an
Lana, this
experience.
yeah, that's very good that you mentioned that, Lana, because Andrew explained that event very clear, and it's very and unique the way how he explained it, and they make completely sense.
Yes.
And after you hear it, you don't ask questions. You say, "Oh, that's why. That makes sense."
Mm.
Yeah, you need to have like a more advanced understanding of what actually took place that day,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and why sometimes some folks have a strong calling to just be there, be the presence. You don't know why you want to be there, you just know you had to be there, and that's how I felt. I just knew I had to be there and do whatever I needed to be doing there. But it's when you really think about it, it's about anchoring the light there to make sure that doesn't get diminished.
Well, I wanted
Yeah.
to go, before the time happens, I wanted to just move on about another character that we didn't talk about with
Amy,
Portia.
Amy, I just have
Oh, yeah.
just one comment, and from my understanding, listening to Andrew talk about the 911, it was like all of the different timelines that experience this energetic event, that to me it looks like a whole bunch of timelines just crashing together and then bubbling out of existence. So it was like all of these extraneous timelines that have been created and created and created just sort of crashed together and blew up, right, and created that whole. But also, not only were the two of you anchoring light, you were also anchoring the most appropriate timeline for Earth Mother, is what I see from that. So.
Mm.
Yes, Amy,
beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that,
Beautiful.
Tanya.
Mhm.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
kind of interesting that both of us Lana spoke about it, the light of the tower, and I wrote about, the towers being lighthouses. And when they came down, I guess we didn't realize in the moment that it was we and many, many others who had to then become the light.
Yes.
We had to become the lighthouses.
Yeah.
I mean, people might be listening to us say this, and they're saying, "Oh, those two are crazy," but that's okay.
That's okay.
We
It
know
wouldn't
what
be
we
the first
felt.
time.
We know what we felt, right?
Lana, that's information going to be for the one that is ready to hear.
Say again.
That's information going to be for the one that is open to hear,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
not for
correct.
everybody.
I love that.
Mm.
Thanks for your
Wow.
comment there, Tanya. Appreciate that
Yeah.
Yes.
added
You're welcome,
information.
Tanya.
Yeah.
Thank you, Patti, for
Wow.
answering my questions and sharing.
Oh, of
Yeah.
course.
Any
Lana,
more
thank
questions?
you.
Any more questions, Lana?
No, I'm done for now.
You're done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I wanted to get to Portia. Did we talk about her? No.
Not
No.
really. What do you want
No.
to talk about?
Well, she's another character that I love. And she just felt like this wise old woman that fished under the bridge.
Mhm.
She really did. And her metaphors to Bear, that Bear had to figure out, like she gave her kind of like homework, like, Nona's talking to me, and Nona's giving, you have to understand this metaphor that I'm giving you from her. And she gave Portia gave Bear a riddle,
Mm.
and I'd like to read the riddle that,
Sure.
because I think it's important. It's kind of like, what would you call this riddle? Like
Sounds like a
it
parable.
turns, yeah,
Yeah.
and it sounds like it turns Bear. It just kind of makes Bear turn, like
Mhm.
get into her body and kind of like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Yeah. So Portia says that here's the riddle about the mystery of life. War is the most tragic of human stories, a story of unfathomable loss. The forest fire, a tragic story of the devastating destruction of trees and animals alike. Fish die-offs, like the countless snook that froze this winter, are tragic extinction weary stories. And then Portia, are you, and then she's like, are you listening, Bear? But the end of the war isn't the end of that story. The extinguishing of the fire isn't the end of that story. And the disappearance of the killing force isn't the end of the fish die-off story either. Each storyline continues and leads to beauty, like a lead lure lost in a current that returns mysteriously golden. That is your riddle. And she hands her a lure to keep in her pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she says, how is that possible? How is it possible to lead to beauty?
Yeah. Yeah. And she does come to Portia and she does say, she presented it again. She figured it out and comes back to Portia.
It takes a while.
It takes a while, but this is towards the end of the book. Yeah. And she figures it out. And she says to Portia, after the war, babies were born in greater numbers than ever before, bringing beauty, love, and joy again. After the fire, seeds sprouted in the soil, enriched by the ashes, and soon the forest was greener and more lush than ever. And after a time, the waterways bloomed again with greater numbers and varieties of fish. Each story eventually leads to beauty, and it's because life itself is beauty and it's unstoppable. I'd like to expound on that or expand on that. Or it just feels like Bear is ready to make that move.
Yeah, I think that Portia, the Portia character is like this wise woman who one would not even notice. She's one of those people who spends as much time as possible fishing under the bridge where the snook are. Snook are fish that grow prolifically, live in Florida waters because of the temperature is just right for them. But they're very temperature sensitive. But at any rate, and so Bear, Bear meets her and they become friends, and she begins to meet Portia down in the canal under the bridge, and fishes with her and confides in her. And Portia is a character who sees between realms. So she sees Nona, she hears Nona, and sometimes she's trying to help Nona nudge Bear. And she can't, she knows that, you don't tell someone what to do, but you try to teach them in whatever ways you can. So she decides to one day use a riddle, because I think that she wants Bear to realize that Bear could lose everything, but that's not the end of the story.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
It's really,
because it's life, and life is unstoppable. And so, and life is beauty.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the lesson for Bear that she gets eventually, and then applies to herself. There's the lead lure that she gifts to Bear. And again, there are some allusions to alchemy, personal alchemy, soul level alchemy, and so forth. So the lead lure is kind of a symbol for that. And Bear, she wants Bear to hold on to it until it turns to gold in its own way. Yeah.
yes. Oh, that's so nice. Yeah. Oh, so I feel like that, I don't know if there's anything you want to add or to that, but I feel like I wanted to end on that because I love that riddle and I love the beautiful words.
No, I mean, I don't think so. I think that we've covered so much, and I'm afraid that if we said much more, we'd
I
be giving the whole book away.
Right. You don't want to do that.
But yeah, it's really I feel like it's really an honor and a privilege to be able to talk about this and talk about it on this level, and have these kind of questions asked, because it isn't just a love story. There's a lot more going on in this book, and it's so it really is a blessing to be asked questions that really kind of go at the heart of my heart and where my heart has been at in this process. So I deeply appreciate that.
Oh, thank you for coming on.
Thank you
so much.
Yeah, it's been a real privilege. So yeah, people can visit my
Tell us where we can.
website. And yes, well, Patti Lucia writes.com. Also, if you subscribe to my newsletter, I send it out seasonally. All right. So I don't inundate people. There's unless there's like some little special event. It's like, hey, like this, I'm going to have an interview. Here you go. But generally, I update people seasonally. And if you sign up for my newsletter, you get 10% off anything you purchase on my website. So, but that's appreciated, and it's really appreciated because I have to be on, and I don't know, maybe I'll change my mind about this, but I just don't like social media. I'm not on Facebook. I'm rarely on Facebook, even though I have a Patti Lucia Writes on Facebook. But you'll see I'm not really there that much. I've promoted my book a little, but I just don't like social media. It's just not my vibe. And so I think I want to connect more with people through my newsletters that I send out, through my website, and any videos or recordings that I have, I'll most likely have on my have on my website. So signing up for my newsletter is really a great way to stay in touch with me. And people can email me too there.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
I love book groups, like book clubs,
Oh,
so if
yeah.
people know book clubs, or if they know of other folks or other hosts who might want to have me on to talk, obviously I like to talk about, I like to talk. So there's that, and I welcome those opportunities. Yeah.
You're welcome to come here on Wednesdays in the summertime after
Yeah, in the
school's
summer,
out.
I took the day off from my teaching job today, and I just felt so great this morning when I got up and realized that not only was I enjoying the day off, but I would get to enjoy 2 hours with a lovely group of people having a really wonderful conversation.
Yeah.
So this has
Yeah.
been a great way to spend my day off. But normally, yeah,
Yeah.
it's summer times that I'm more available. Yeah,
Yeah.
for now
So
anyway.
that would be nice. Oh, awesome. Oh, and Taylor's coming on.
Thank you.
Taylor?
There's
Oh.
Tate.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Thank you,
Oh,
Patricia.
thank you.
Everyone. Thank you for the
And-
nice.
Thank you, Helena.
This is a beautiful journey.
It is.
Love you, Patty.
Mhm,
Thanks, Anoki. Thanks for
Yeah.
popping in, Anoki.
mhm.
And have you started the next part of the trilogy?
I'm doing the research, and that is really a wonderful experience. So
Yes.
I'm diving into the research for it and putting together my outlines and things like that. So yeah,
Oh,
it's
nice.
kind of a fun stage. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you so much. And
Fantastic.
thank you, everybody,
I think
for coming
I
on.
wrote down,
What did
There's
you
some-
write down?
you can never beat.
Was that
Sorry,
Mar?
we lost you, Martina.
We
Was
lost
that
you.
Martina?
I was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Say it again.
Can you hear me?
Say it again.
Yeah. I remember a sentence in the beginning, you guys said it's all a bit too spiritual. Remember that?
It's
Can
all
you
a
hear
bit
me?
too spiritual. No, I don't.
And- Yeah, I don't know. It was maybe a little too spiritual. Somebody said that. Or
Oh, it was
it-
Patty that said that maybe people are going to think that would be to the speech or the book.
Oh, Martina.
I just wanted to
yeah,
say-
yeah. Go ahead.
I was just
Yeah.
going to say, don't worry about that. The more spiritual, the better.
Yeah.
Be-
Mm,
you
I think
read them down into reality, but them a character and giving them a role to play.
Mm,
So don't worry
Thank-
about being too spiritual. Just go for it. Go for it. Because that's what spirituality is all about. It's about embodiment. You're creating the character and the body for all those spiritual impulses that are coming through.
mm.
So in a couple of years' time, nobody's going to say it's too spiritual because, well, not nobody maybe, but because people are starting to realize that
Yeah,
this is where we create.
that's right.
mhm.
That's
So
right.
go for it. Yeah. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a
Thank you
real
for
honor.
hosting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you,
Thank
Patty.
you.
Thank you all. It's been a
Thanks,
pleasure.
Amy, for
All right.
hosting.
Oh, thanks, Lana.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome.
Let me just
Thank
let me
you.
just say one thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Before we close, Amy, I just
Yeah.
want to say I will be away next week, and our lovely Tanya Corona is gonna host it, and she'll gonna send out the invitation and everything. And Patty, if you do want the recording, I'll put it onto my YouTube.
YouTube.
Not mine, Earth Moving YouTube. But if you want the recording to put it onto your own, or just cut, paste, do some stuff, then let me know, and I can
Mhm.
send to you by V-Transfer, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Yeah, I would love to
Yeah.
post it up on my website. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys.
you.
Thanks, Amy.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank
Patty.
you.
Thank
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.